All good.
Hi there, everyone. My name's Sally Lewis, dog behaviourist, and I'm putting together a quick Halloween 101 on behalf of Interdogs to give you some ideas for you and your dogs across the Halloween period. What we're going to be covering this evening is we're going to look at the emotional bucket and potential for trigger stacking. This is something that I think that every dog guardian, Halloween or not, should be aware of all of the time. We're going to look at dog body language. Again, this is something that everyone should always be aware of no matter what capacity you are caring for dogs in, whether you have a dog, whether you know people with dogs, whether you're working with dogs, you should be able to read dog body language. So we're going to be talking through some of that. We're going to look at areas for increased emotional risk over Halloween. So things that could become potentially a little bit triggering or overwhelming for your dogs, and how to manage these situations to prevent that for your dog, prevent stress and set your dog up for success. So we're going to look at management strategies for this stuff as well. We're going to look at possibilities of increased physical risk over Halloween, and I'll go into what I mean by that in a moment. And then at the end, we're going to talk through some dog safe Halloween activities that you can do either with your children or on your own. So if you've got children that would like to involve the dog in Halloween, a lot of the things that human children really enjoy about Halloween aren't necessarily going to be that enjoyable for your dog. There are things that you can do that will be enjoyable for them and that I'm sure the children would love to take part in. So we're going to go over some of that at the end. So without further ado, we'll move on. So trigger stacking, and I'm going to keep this, I'm going to give you a human example for this because this is what I find my clients find easiest to relate to. So trigger stacking, Sarah and her bad day versus her good day. So I want you to picture a person called Sarah, and Sarah works in an office and she has a 9 to 5 job. She has a commute, half an hour there, half an hour back. And when she gets home, she's got quite a busy evening. So Sarah goes to work one day, and on the way into work, she hits a load of traffic, so she's late. And her day at work is quite complicated. She has a lot of stressful meetings and she's back to back constantly. In the meantime, her phone's ringing, her boss is on her back about certain things that they want doing. She doesn't get the chance to take her full lunch break because she's got so much on. She only gets 15 minutes instead of a half an hour that she might otherwise take. So the day is quite intense for her. And then she drives home, and again, she's stuck in rush hour traffic. And when she's on the way back, the fuel light pops up. So she's got another thing to sort out because she's then got to go to the petrol station to fill her car up before she can get home. And then she walks in, and her partner says to her, "Hey, you've had a good day at work. I don't know if you saw my text earlier. I asked if you could pop to get some milk for us because we don't have any. Did you do it?" Now, given the day that Sarah's had, she might well snap at that request about the milk. She might say, "Have you not been home for half an hour? Couldn't you just go and get it yourself? Why is that falling on me?" Whereas if Sarah didn't hit the morning traffic, had quite a nice day at work, got to take a full relaxing lunch break, her day was more manageable, less pressure from external people, she had a smoother drive home, didn't have to do the whole fuel thing. And then she got home and her partner said to her, "I don't know if you saw my text. I asked if you could pick up some milk. Did you manage to get it?" She might go, "Do you know what? I didn't even have a chance to look at my phone. I'll just pop back out now. No worries." Or she might say, "Would you mind going? Because I need to go and XYZ." The point of this example is in example A, Sarah's had a bad day. She's had a lot on her plate. In example B, Sarah hasn't had any of that whatsoever. She's had a relatively good day. The final trigger in both of these instances, the final thing that happened was the same. The difference in the scenario where Sarah snapped versus Sarah did not is she had a lot of other things to handle. So if we're thinking about our dogs here, what I want you to think about is if something happens to your dog and they seem to react disproportionately or overreact. I'm going to use that quote that some people often say, my dog overreacted to this. They saw 5 or 6 dogs and then they saw the seventh one. They reacted when they didn't react before. What I want you to think about is what else has your dog had on their plate? What else have they had to contend with? If we think back to Sarah and her good day versus her bad day, what has our dog had to deal with that might influence their response to something? And this is going to be really relevant when we start thinking about all of the additional stimulation that the spooky season, Halloween can bring, but also, coming into other things like bonfire night here in the UK, Christmas and the holiday season coming up. This is something really relevant for all dogs. the emotional bucket. So I'm just going to try and, I've got something in the way, so I'm going to try and move that so I can see my text. Okay, so these are on the screen. So the emotional bucket is a way of considering the dog's nervous system. So every dog has an emotional bucket. Now, some dogs have a very small emotional bucket. If they're a dog that can't really deal with a lot and they're a nervous dog, they're much more sensitive, they might not be able to cope with quite as much. A more robust dog, so a dog that is more resilient, can probably cope with much more. Now, what I want you to picture is a little cup and a big bucket. And as we start to add water into those cups and buckets, at some point they are going to get very full. And this is what we call being at threshold. And when they start overflowing, they are over threshold. And this is the point where your dog starts to struggle to cope when that bucket or when that cup is quite full. Now, obviously, a dog with a smaller emotional bucket, it doesn't take as much being added to it to be too much for the dog. So when a dog's emotional bucket is full, they're past their coping point and they will behave differently. So this is just like Sarah on her bad day. And you need to remember this when you think of trigger stacking. Now, things that add to your dog's emotional bucket to give you some understanding of this. So the nervous system cannot differentiate between excitement, sort of overexcitement, and stress. It deals with them in the same way. So from a sort of a human emotional perspective, although we view excitement as a positive thing, and stress as a negative thing, the nervous system deals with those in the same way. So if your dog has some very exciting things happen to them, that will add to your dog's emotional bucket in the same way that stress will. So we need to make sure that we're giving our dogs lots of chances to decompress, to empty their bucket. So good decompression activities you can offer your dog include licking, shredding, chewing, sniffing. Sniffing lowers heart rate, lowers blood pressure, and it really helps dogs to empty their bucket. So if you're going out on a nice walk, please don't be pulling your dogs along. As long as it is safe and appropriate and okay for them to be where they are and sniffing, you're not in the middle of a road, please just let them carry on because this is actually really beneficial for your dog. So the reason again that I'm talking through this is because when it comes to sort of holiday seasons where people are celebrating and there might be much more stimulation, whether that is visual, whether that's things they can smell, things they can hear, it's very easy for your dog's emotional bucket to fill up quite a lot and for them to become overwhelmed much more quickly. And that might mean they behave differently off the back of it. So that's why we're going through the emotional bucket now. But this doesn't just apply to sort of celebratory seasons. This sort of thing is relevant for every dog all of the year. And it's also relevant for people. So how can our dogs become trigger stacked during Halloween? So this is just some examples of things that you can think about when it comes to things that your dog might have on their plate and adding to their bucket through this sort of Halloween period. So we might have increased visual stimulation. So where we didn't have decorations, flashing lights, things like that before, we might now. These might be things that your dog has never seen before or look a little bit spooky. So we have a that we put out by the front door. It's a big skeleton, and when I turn it on, I don't do this for my dog, of course, but when I turn it on, its hands start to move and things like that. Now that is switched off most of the time, and it only goes out when trick-or-treaters are coming. It's put away after that. However, if you were to walk your dog past a house where stuff like that's going off, that is quite terrifying, and that's something that they are not used to seeing at all. Even if the battery pack is not plugged in and you've just got the decorations, those are all things that your dog won't have seen before. You might also have people, children, if you've got children in the home that are trying on all their costumes and they've got little props. These are all things that are going to be novel for your dog. They might not be sure of, and especially if we've got more sensitive dogs, they might feel worried by that. So we've got increased visual stimulation. We've got more exciting events. So if you've got a dog that really likes people and finds people really stimulating and exciting, and you have some people over for a little Halloween get together, or just a get together generally, these are things that we have to consider, the potential for more exciting events, things that they become much more stimulated by. Equally, we have the potential for more worrying events, so things that they might find stressful. We have increased audible stimulation, so things that they can hear going on. So we might have more music on if if you are playing Halloween music or looking ahead, Christmas music, things like that. We have increased olfactory stimulations. That means smells. So if you have decided you're going to start using, so if you're carving a pumpkin and you want to cook the pumpkin, you might be cooking things that you didn't cook before. We have to remember that a dog's sense of smell is a lot more overwhelming than, a lot more intense than ours, so they can smell a lot more. If you're cooking, a pumpkin pie and you're putting cinnamon in it and stuff like that, that can be quite intense for your dog. So their sense of smell is so much more developed. So again, these are all things that we have to factor in. And busier environments. So there is a chance that the environment in your home and around your home might be busier when there's things going on. And these are all things that we have to consider for our dogs. So ultimately, we have to ensure that your dog does not become overwhelmed. Manage their environment to ensure that their emotional well-being is looked after. And do not take them, sorry, that there says take that to events. It should say do not take them to events that you feel will be worrying for them. Your dog does not need to go trick-or-treating. Um, where I live, occasionally it surprises me when I so a little person behind the door knocks it, I open it, and their parents have brought a dog with them. A dog does not need to go trick-or-treating. They get very little out of that. I don't really know any dog. There might be dogs out there that enjoy it. But the likelihood is that your dog would much rather enjoy some chill time at home, whether that is staying with a caregiver or whether that's some time just chilling on their own while you guys pop out and trick or treat. Think about situations that your dog would actually enjoy and does or doesn't need to be in. If you think a situation will be stressful for them and is avoidable, then you don't need to put them in it. So think about safe, quiet spaces or alternative care options if you're doing things like having Halloween parties at home. The costumes, the music, the lights and the food, it can all be a bit much for your dog. And again, if we're thinking about trigger stacking and emotional buckets, it's very easy to consider why a dog may behave slightly differently and in a way that people may perceive as overreacting or out of character, when actually the likelihood is that everything is all a bit much. So, thinking about physical risks through Halloween. So, the Halloween period, and again, I'm talking about Halloween now, but this also applies to Christmas, Thanksgiving if you're in the US. Halloween is often filled with sweets, chocolate, and treats. We humans love all of this, but it can be harmful for your dog, and that's something that we have to take stock of. Ensure that these are kept well out of reach, away in cupboards that your dog can't access. So please don't put these things in low down cupboards, especially if you've got dogs that can open these easily. Keep them well out of reach. And if you've got a dog that is very good at opening doors, child locks can be very helpful and prevent dangerous situations from occurring. If your children, so if you have children in the home, if they're too young to understand not sharing sweets with the dog, if they don't understand that it is not safe to share sweets with their dog, which they might do because they love them and they feel like it's a nice thing to do. Or you might have a small toddler in the house that just throws their food. I have one, so I know how this is. If your child doesn't understand that, then they should be separated from your dog while they are eating their sweets. So if your child is consuming things that you know are hazardous for your dog should be put somewhere else for the safety of your dog. It goes without saying that children and dogs should be supervised together at all times, and we should be actively supervising them, not playing on phones and glancing up periodically. We should have eyes on children and dogs. I'm not going to go into management of children and dogs too much right now, but that's just to get that in there that we should be doing that regardless of what the children are eating. And pumpkin. So not everyone knows this, but pumpkin is a natural laxative. This can occasionally be helpful if you've got a dog that is a wee bit constipated. However, if you've got a dog that's a scavenger and there's a lot of pumpkin around, whether that's on doorsteps in your home or anything else, please be aware of the laxative effects of pumpkin and don't let them go delving into all of that. It was on social media a couple of years ago, there was a bit of a campaign and people were saying, please go and take pumpkins to the woods. Don't put them in the bin. Go and take them to the woods and leave them out for small animals. And as far as I'm aware, that's not actually a good idea because it could well cause upset tummies to these animals that aren't used to eating pumpkin, especially having it so readily available to them. It could well make them more poorly. And if you are out in the woods around this time, just be aware that there may be people that have chosen to leave pumpkins out. So if you've got a dog that likes to forage and eat what they find, which isn't an uncommon behaviour at all and is quite normal, please be mindful of the risks associated with eating too much pumpkin. So to touch on dog body language then, sort of bringing us around to dog body language. So I've talked a little bit about your dogs becoming overwhelmed during the Halloween period and, things that situations we should probably avoid putting them in. But it's important that we are able to recognize when they are becoming overwhelmed and actually have a look at their body language and see what's going on. So body language is a bit of a ladder. Now, a lot of people feel that growling is the first communication that their dogs will offer, and the reality of that is actually growling is right up the top of the ladder and it precedes snapping and biting. Now, I will start this off by saying that we should not be punishing growling. We should not be telling dogs off when they growl. And the reason for that is because growling is a request for space. Dogs, by their nature, are not confrontational creatures, and they communicate because they want to avoid conflict and they try to de escalate situations through communicating. So, if your dog does growl, that is a request for space that should be respected. The dog should be given the space that they are asking for, and then we as humans need to reflect, why did that happen? What caused my dog to growl? So that we can prevent that situation happening again. If the dog space is not respected, the likelihood is that they are going to have to resort to growling again. They may snap, they may bite. So we have to be conscious of that and do not punish the growl, because if we do, they will learn growling is ineffective and they will skip that step. And we don't want them to skip a communicational step that ultimately precedes use of teeth. So if I move through the ladder of communication a little bit, so just talk through some of these steps. So some of the more subtle things that you will see from your dog, body language wise, include yawning. So a lot of people assume that they have very tired dogs, and that is not always the case. A dog, if they are yawning, there's a possibility that they are communicating things like stress or frustration. So yawning is a low-level stress signal. We have showing the whites of eyes. So hopefully you can see this picture on the screen now. So most dog breeds, you do have some dog breeds that you can see the whites of their eyes a little bit more. Those are breeds such as pugs, Frenchies, Shih Tzus, breeds that have a physiology that does mean that their eyes are much wider. However, most dogs, if you are listening to this now and you have a dog at home, if you call your dog, there is a pretty strong chance that you will not be able to see the whites of their eyes, depending on their breed. They're not one of those sort of like larger eyed breeds, or a basset hound, they tend to have droopy eyes. Most dogs, you cannot see the whites of their eyes all of the time. If you can see the white of your dog's eyes, they are showing them to you, and that is a way that they communicate stress and that they want some space. So yawning, showing the whites of their eyes, this is known as a whale eye. We will have an increased blink rate. So I want you to imagine that you are stood in the wind on a windy day and you are blinking to try and keep your eyes moisturized and stop them drying out. We will see an increased blink rate in stressed dogs. We will see narrowing of eyes, ears going back. So again, you can see in this dog that in this photo that this dog's ears are back. We will see turning their head away and avoidant type behaviour where they're sort of looking anywhere but at the thing that's bothering them. Moving away entirely, so turning their body away and trying to move away. We might also see some hard staring, so intense staring without kind of breaking that contact. And they might look quite tense while they're doing that. And that is a way to communicate that they would like you to back off. The hard staring often precedes things like lifting of their top lip to show teeth, growling, snapping, biting. There are other forms of communication, but these are a few things that are very subtle and are often missed. Alongside this is also the lip lick. So dogs will lip lick for a couple of different reasons. If they are licking around their jowls, which is the side of their mouth, that is for saliva control. If they are licking up towards their nose, that is a way that they're communicating discomfort. And this can be emotional discomfort and it can also be physical discomfort. So you will see dogs that are about to be sick licking their lips quite a lot. And that is for two reasons, because they feel rubbish, but also they're salivating much more. So they will be bouncing between the two different types of lip licks. But if you see a dog licking up towards their nose, that's also a way that they're communicating low level stress. If you see these things from your dog, please take stock of it. Please don't go, oh, it'll be fine. Acknowledge what your dog is saying, because if your dog learns that you are going to actually advocate for them when they're communicating, they will learn that this type of communication is functional. and they won't escalate up to the bigger things, such as hard staring, posturing, squaring up, growling, stuff like that. So I've skimmed over this. I haven't gone completely in depth. I've just gone with some of the more subtle things that people tend to miss. And when they say my dog growled out of the blue or they bit out of the blue, often actually a lot of this stuff has gone on that people have just totally overlooked. So a note on dressing up dogs. I see this a lot. I see little competitions where people encourage others to dress their dogs up, whether that's for Halloween or for other festive periods. The vast majority of dogs do not enjoy dressing up, uh, although there are a rare few that do. I know a couple of dogs that don't necessarily mind it, and I know one that actively seeks these things out. I think just because they've been rewarded so much for it in the past that they will now sort of drag little coats and little outfits out, probably because it's sort of yielded so much human attention. There's lots of reasons as to why that dog might like it, but that's irrelevant at the moment. The vast majority of dogs do not enjoy dressing up. So when you are tempted to put a little hat on your dog because you think it's cute, or put them in a little costume, please consider their body language and what they're saying to you. If you like the idea of your dog looking a bit festive or themed for the season, please consider something a little bit more dog friendly that doesn't cause them stress. So that might be a Halloween collar, a bandana if they like wearing those and don't find that worrying, instead of a full costume. So there are other things that you can do to sort of go with the season without causing stress to your dog. And please also, and on when we're thinking about dressing up, please consider how a nervous dog or a dog that just hasn't seen something like this before may respond to your Halloween costume. So if you're dressing up for Halloween, please consider how your dog might respond to that and avoid putting them in situations that frighten them. So if they seem startled or unsure, or worried by costumes, please don't then, try and get them to pose in a family picture where you're all wearing your Halloween costumes. Please don't have them at the costume party. Just try to avoid putting a dog in these situations that frighten them. You could consider very gently exposing them to things to try and help them overcome that fear for the future, but that is a whole other talk that would take an hour on its own. So that's not something I'm going to go down too much now. So, management strategies over the spooky season. So we talked a lot about things that you need to be conscious of, things that you need to be aware of, and we're going to come on just to some more practical tips. And these are things that I do myself in my life when it comes to Halloween with the family, with the kids, and these are things that I encourage my clients to go out and do as well. So when it comes to management strategies, first up is leave your dog at home for events that they really do not need to be at. So again, I'm thinking about going to Halloween parties, going to going to Halloween theme night, going trick-or-treating, and again, talking about Halloween, but you can think about this advice for any situation really. If there is an event that is probably going to cause some emotional challenges for your dog and they do not need to be there, consider whether you can leave them at home. Now, if they're a dog that struggle being left on their own, apologies for the beeping, if they are a dog that struggles with being alone, then you can arrange care for them in whatever form that looks like, whatever you're able to arrange. Or if they are happy being left on their own, then you can leave them at home for a short, appropriate period while you go out and enjoy these activities yourself. When it comes to trick-or-treating, if you live in an area that is busy with trick-or-treaters, but you have a nervous dog, I would make a door sign asking people not to knock and ensure that they can read this in dim lighting conditions. So please consider that the people coming to your door are probably not very old. They are probably not adults, they are probably children or teenagers, and they might be rushing to your door and are very excited and are going to knock on it quite quickly. So if you have a nervous dog that won't do well with trick-or-treaters, will find the whole situation very overwhelming and is even particularly worried by the door going, make sure that you have a very visible door sign that is going to attract their attention very quickly as soon as they get to your front door. And please make sure that you have your doorway area is well lit enough that they can actually see that. Where I live, most people only tend to go and knock on the houses that have Halloween decorations out. However, it's not a given. There might be some people that don't necessarily kind of follow that. So regardless of if you have Halloween decorations out and you're sort of beckoning trick-or-treaters or not, I would put a door sign out over Halloween if your dog is not going to do well with people coming and knocking on the door. On the flip side, if you are welcoming trick-or-treaters, set up management for your dog. So I would be looking at barriers so that they cannot access the front door, and this includes not seeing people in scary costumes, or if your dog becomes very overstimulated by visitors, and that would get to, they're not necessarily worried by people being at the front door, but they get very excitable by people being at the door and would continue to get excited by lots of people coming in a short space of time. You need to consider that as well for your dog. So barriers so they can't access the front door or see people in costumes. Now, what you may choose to do is put music on to mask the regular doorbell sound or the knocking. You might give your dog some enrichment, so things like a lick mat or a chew, or something that they're going to enjoy. You might do a bit of scent work with them in a room that's away from the front door. And I also use Pet Remedy spray as well. So Pet Remedy is a natural calming spray. It's clinically proven, and I spritz this around the area that my dog is relaxing in while the trick-or-treaters are coming. Now, there's two flip sides to barriers. So obviously we're looking after your dog's emotional well-being with avoiding what I'm going to refer to as the doorway party. Lots of doorway activity and sounds coming from the doorway for your dog. But the other thing that we're doing is we're preventing them from putting themselves or other people in an unsafe situation and potentially also door dashing. So we're making sure that we're keeping your dog emotionally and physically safe, but also doing the same thing for other people, making sure that they're kept safe too. So I would consider a cut-off time for trick-or-treaters. So in our home, we cap trick-or-treaters at 1 hour to prevent our dog becoming trigger stacked. So in my home, my dog chills out in my living room while I tend to be in the kitchen, where I have a view out the front window. I can see everyone coming. He's got his music on in the living room. I do my thing with the trick-or-treaters at the front door because we seem to live in trick-or-treater central. After an hour, I switch my door sign up and I put a sign on the door that says no more trick-or-treaters, thanks. And the some of the decorations come in, the candles are blown out on the pumpkins come in, and we just try to tone down our house. And the reason I do that is because my dog can cope with, I try and manage his exposure to a lot of this so that it doesn't become too much because he finds visitors quite exciting. However, after an hour of me doing all of this, it's not unreasonable for him to start. If we continued, he would be much more aware of this doorway party and the doorway activity. So I personally cap my trick-or-treating time to an hour. It Depending on your dog, it doesn't have to be an hour. You might do more, you might do less. But consider a cut-off time to make things more manageable for your dog and to stop them becoming overwhelmed. Even if they were doing really well in the first 20 minutes, they might start to become, oh, don't know what happened there, overwhelmed later on. Okay, so dog safe activities for Halloween. So this is all with direct adult supervision. So I've got little people in my house, I've got two children, and I know that they really enjoy getting involved with the dog over the Halloween period. And that's absolutely fine. That as far as they're concerned, they the children think that the dog's going to enjoy Halloween as much as them. However, dogs don't enjoy it in the same way as them. So we need to make sure that we are offering dog safe approach activities, and that these are all done with direct adult supervision and in line with what is age appropriate and safe for your dog and your children. So, first idea, and these are all things that I do in my home. Bobbing for veggies. So this is a really easy activity to set up. I'm sure at one point in our lives we've all engaged in bobbing for apples as children, sticking our heads in usually a bucket of some sort or a small paddling pool to try and grab the apples out with our teeth. We can set up a similar thing for our dogs called bobbing for veggies. I would put some very small dog safe veggies in a very shallow, it can be a shallow sort of like a baking bowl, like a bowl big enough for them to get their head into, or a small paddling pool or something like that. This is something that your children can do. They can scatter the things in and then let your dog go and fish things out. We don't want your dog ingesting too much water while we do this, so we want to make sure that we're monitoring that. But this is a really nice twist on bobbing for apples, and we can do that in a dog safe way. If your children have engaged in bobbing for apples themselves, they might enjoy this a little bit more. One thing that I would make sure you're not allowing your children to do are to bob for veggies while your dog is bobbing for veggies. Please, this is just an activity for the dogs. We don't want them thinking that people are sort of coming in and getting on top of them while we're doing this. So this is an activity for your dogs. If your children want to do it, they do it separately. Hide and treat. So a play on hide and seek. This is quite a simple one, really. We can hide some bits and pieces around for our dogs to hunt out and find. Most children really love engaging with this and hiding things for their dog to go out and find. So you might, around your living room or a room in your home or in your garden, hide some treats and send your dog out to go find it. You might hide their favourite toy and get your children to do this as well. Again, all supervised. This is a really nice activity for dogs and children actually, because the children are being very involved with the dog and doing something that gives your dogs a natural outlet for doggy behaviour, but there is no direct um, interaction. You know, the children are doing it and then the dog is coming out, and the children can watch your dog do it, but there's no direct on top of each other type interaction. So this is a really nice activity to do. If your dog doesn't know a find it or a go find it or a go search cue, I would teach them this sort of thing before you go and sort of play a more elaborate scent work based game. Um, Making dog safe Halloween treats. So it's very easy to Google some simple biscuit or sort of dog safe muffin ideas. I often make a banana and peanut butter variety with my daughter. For my dog on special occasions. This is something that can easily be done with children, that they can, they can sort of take pride in the fact that they've done something that their dog can eat, and it's a nice activity to do as a family. So a craft activity that I refer to as a ghost box. Now, the disclaimer on this is if your child is going to get upset about the dog ripping to shreds something that they've worked on, don't do it. However, so a ghost box, this is a children's craft and craft activity, and it's enrichment for your dog. Do not use tape, staples, or glue. These all pose hazards to your dog. What I would do for this is get some old recycling, so some boxes and things like that, and I would draw some kind of little ghosty faces, so the eyes and mouth and different expressions on them. Cut them up. You know, your dog can make these little ghosts however they want to. And then they can, if they would like to, they can fill them with some paper, they can hide some treats in there, and then they can give that to the dog with the view that the dog is going to rip this to shreds. So it's a little craft activity for the kids. Again, they're making something for the dog, and it's a nice outlet for natural dog behaviour. A lot of people worry about their dogs destroying toys, and it is actually quite normal. So giving your dog a safe outlet for this can be a great idea. Just be mindful that they're not ingesting everything that they're ripping up. Obviously, if they're getting their treats, that's okay. But if they are ripping up a box and paper, we don't want to see them then ingesting everything that they rip up, because that could cause some problems physically. Moving on then to another little enrichment activity that we'll call a witch's brew for Halloween purposes. So what you can do with this one is, and again, involve the kids. So use some cooked, mashed, dog-safe veggie and some plain yogurt to create a brew for your dog. So your children can do that. Your children can get involved with mashing up the veg, helping to mix it in with plain yogurt if your dog will tolerate yogurt, of course. And this can be spread onto things like a leaky mat or in a Kong. And this is a useful one that you can give to your dog during trick-or-treating time. So not only again are the children doing something nice to give to the dog, but this is something that you can actively use during trick-or-treating times when there's a lot of background noise and stuff going on, if you want to give your dog some enrichment during those times. So some hopefully easy to do activities that are nice for little humans and dogs. So I've kept this sort of fairly concise, talking about the things that I think are essential things to consider for the Halloween period. I hope you found this useful and it's given you some ideas for you and your dog. I'm wishing everyone a very happy Halloween season. If you would like to learn more about setting dogs and children up for success, especially if you have a dog in your home, then I would order a copy of my book, which is called Dogs Can Talk. That is on Amazon. So Dogs Can Talk by Sally Lewis. This is a book that I wrote, and the reason I put this book together was because I personally didn't feel that there were many resources that were particularly Designed with young children in mind as the primary audience to help them learn about safe interactions with their family dog and how to understand what their family dog was saying. And being a mum of young children myself, I wanted to give children a way to learn to read their dog. So this is a book that's been put together with primary school age children in mind, and most parents also share that they've learnt a lot from this book. So the book goes over different aspects of body language. It's interactive, so it encourages the children to kind of get involved with the story and kind of narrate along and help the dog in the story. And towards the end of the book, there are activity ideas and different things that you can do with your children, conversation starters for chats with your children about the dog, to encourage them to be part of being the dog's voice and know what the dog is saying. And ultimately, all of this doesn't, it helps children live more happily with their dogs, it helps the dogs live more happily with the children, but this also all contributes to bite prevention, which is very, very important. So if you've got any questions about anything you've heard today, please feel free to contact me at www.knowyourdogdevon.com. That should be on screen. And thank you very much for tuning in.